Hmm. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon to all my Zoomers here. Hi, how you doing?
Good. Nice to see.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Hi. Michael, hi,
Yes.
Mike.
How are you?
Are you the same Michael we spoke from a webinar from seminar many years ago for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. All right. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Okay. I'm sorry I hope I didn't embarrass you by
No, it's
putting
fine.
Good to see you. Just give me a second. I'm having some technology issues here. Does anyone know
Join
how?
the club with him.
Yeah. Do you know how I can turn off WhatsApp notifications off of here so it doesn't like make beeps when I'm doing this?
I wonder if you have to close the app. Or
Close the
even if
window.
that will do it, you might actually need to go to settings and turn off notifications.
Let's see, where's the notifications here?
The technology was supposed to save us so much time.
Oh, I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's
Chats.
just changed where we. Yeah, now instead of focusing 100% on our work, we're focusing.
Well, I can log out of it. I can log out of it.
The technology.
I just logged out of the app. Hopefully that works.
But there's actually a study done on students using laptops to take notes in class. They had lower retention and lower comprehension than people who took notes by hand.
This is a good week for you.
The machine gets in the way. Well, if you
Give me a second.
use it, it's like if you're writing something, it's like you have to focus, not just on the words you want to get out, but getting them into a piece of equipment. And somehow, yeah, this is the best word processor ever invented.
Can't believe they got here on time, all the way from Bryn Mawr.
Wow,
Okay.
from that, says luck.
I had a doctor's checkup there and then
Yeah.
scoot over here.
Every time I'll try to, I usually go.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
That's okay.
But if you leave yourself an hour and a half,
Yeah,
you get there in 45 minutes.
yes, that's true. That's right.
Okay. Sorry about the delay.
Tomorrow?
Okay, so this is the challenge over here. I'm gonna keep admitting everyone here. Okay, so thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
For those in person, for those on Zoom.
Thanks for having me.
I definitely think that Zoom generally is more popular. There's always more people on Zoom in general. This is the way people are going today. Okay. But you know, what can I tell you? You're missing out on this delicious lunch over here. But you know, it's courtesy of my wife. She
It's a
made
draw.
the
Sure.
but it's certainly a draw to be you know, on Zoom as well. So Van, I was commenting to someone a few days ago that the paradoxically in a certain tragic way, Zoom means COVID really facilitated a complete change for everything which I'm doing in terms of being able to access not just participants, you know, all around the world, but also speakers as well. As you know from the seminars which I do with guest speakers, I have speakers from all around the world. The last webinar we did was all the 3 speakers were in Israel.
Right.
And very, very good. So it's a very good opportunity. So, but anyway.
But I remember the good old days when we had these events.
Well, we do. That's why we're here now. That's why we. So now it's hybrid. Now it's hybrid. So, can everyone hear me? Okay, everyone can see and hear me on Zoom. Everything is okay. Good. Okay. So, just for the technicalities of, or the technology of it, for the people who are doing it on Zoom. Oh, and I forgot to bring the CLE forms for you over here. We'll do it afterwards. Don't worry. For the people who are doing this on Zoom, so I'll be announcing some codes throughout. I'll be announcing 3 codes throughout the entire class, which will be necessary for your CLE credit. And also in the portal where you logged in to the class, and I'll try and put it into the chat afterwards as well. There's a link there to the handout, which accompanies the class as well. So, and I'll give out handouts over here shortly as well. So the topic, the class today, the topic being that it's Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is today. It's a very special holiday, and I think this may be a little bit of a different type of CLE. You know, CLEs in general are focused on contemporary ethical legal issues through the lens of Jewish law, and there's a big focus, a heavy focus on just the law itself, the ethics and the law itself. With this one, it's going to be a little bit more leaning towards a little bit of drop of spirituality to it, because it's hard not to talk about the topic, which I'm going to get to eventually, without going through this gateway of Lag BaOmer, because that's what it is today. And it's also hard not to miss out the opportunity to talk about the significance of this very special day. But you'll see where I'm going to go eventually, and how it's going to bring out a very, very practical, ethical, and legal issue, which I think I even alluded to in the advertisement as well. But let's just first talk about what Lag BaOmer is. Lag BaOmer, which is today, is called Lag BaOmer. And you know, before I begin, I'm just going to give you the first code, 33. Just we should get started. I don't forget that. You don't need that, right? The first code is 33, right? 33 is the first code. So everyone make note of that. 33. So Lag BaOmer, the word lag is from the letters Lamed Gimel. And Lamed Gimel are the letters in Hebrew which spell out the number 33. In Hebrew, there's no separate numeric system. It's based upon the letters. So therefore, Lamed Gimel is 33. Lamed is 30, Gimel is 3. So it's 33. So what's 33? It's the 33rd day of the Omer. It's the 33rd day of the period of time that we're counting the days between Pesach and Shavuos. So today's the 33rd day. And the reason why it's a significant day historically, there's a lot of things, actually about 6 or 7 events which took place on this day historically. The earliest event historically that took place is in the desert, when the Jewish people were traveling through the desert after they came out of Egypt. The manna began to fall for the first time on the 33rd day of the Yoma, on this day. So the Jewish people were surviving on the mats which they ate when they came out of Mitzrayim for the first 32 days, and then that ran out, and then the heavenly manna began to fall on the 33rd day today. So that's what the tradition tells us. We can trace it all the way back to the descent of the manna. It's also the beginning of the last third of the days between Pesach and Shavuos. So the days are divided by, there's 48 days, and then the 49th day is a day of review, and we reflect back over everything, and the 50th day is the holiday of Shavuos. So you can actually take this period of time and divide into 3 segments. So we're now entering in the final phase, the final third of the 33 of the days of the Omer between Pesach and Shavuos. And the reason for that and the significance of that is that now we're going into the final step towards the holiday of Shavuos, where the Torah was given, the revelation of Sinai. So this day marks this final phase, the final journey towards the holiday of Shavuos, and historically the Jewish people were now getting ready for the revelation of Mount Sinai. The more common events which took place on this day was the birth and the death of a very, very famous, mystical, sagely individual. His name is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Shimon Bar Yochai was one of the great sages of the Talmud, one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva. And he was a mystical giant in the sense of what he contributed towards the world, because he was born on this day, he passed away on this day, and it was on this day that he revealed to the world his famous work, his famous composition called the Zohar. And the Zohar is the
Oh, I'm sorry, I did talk to Mark.
Well, then I didn't, because he knows who played there, but you can play in my apartment.
okay. So the Zohar, right? the Zohar is the famous mystical work of Jewish mysticism, and
Well, I'll take that shame.
okay, we just had a little bit of a disturbance over here. There was some kind of marginal conflict going on in this room. So the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the famous sage, he was the writer. He composed the Zohar, the famous Kabbalistic work called the Zohar, and it was revealed on this day. On Lag BaOmer, it was revealed. He was born on this day. He passed away on this day. He revealed the Kabbalistic mystical tradition of Judaism on this day. The manna fell on this day. And also another very famous event is in this time period between Pesach and Shavuos, the students of Rabbi Akiva, again, one of the great sages of the Talmud, he had a remarkable number of students. He had 24,000 students altogether, which is really, it's hard to imagine how he was able to tend to all of those students. But he had 24,000 students. And a great tragedy took place to the 24,000, more than 24,000. He had 24,000 plus. But a great tragedy took place with them that 24,000 students passed away during this time period between Pesach and Shavuos. They passed away. And the Gemara says, the Talmud says, that it was attributed to a failure of proper kavod, a proper respect that they had towards one another. And as a result of that, so to speak, divine punishment, they passed away, they died through a plague, different things happened. But that plague and that tragedy stopped occurring on this day. So this day is the day that tragedy was over. So this is why the custom is that between Pesach and Lag BaOmer, many have the custom of conducting this period as a period of mourning, of not taking haircuts, not having weddings and celebrations, etc. But that all is over now with Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer marks the switch over to a time of joy, and it's no longer a time of tragedy. But it's also coincides with this great day of the revelation of the Zohar and the birth and the passing away of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Now you may say, why is the passing away of a great rabbi considered a happy occasion? Depends on who it is. A person of his stature, a person as great as Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, with what he contributed and what he brought to the Jewish world, to the world at large. So his neshama, his soul, reached zenith when he passed away. He reached his potential, and therefore the ascent of his soul up to the heavens was really marked in a paradoxical kind of way, a happy time, especially because what came with it was the revelation of the Zohar as well. So all these great things happened on this day. Customs which are practiced, which relates to the topic which we're going to speak about, is that bonfires are made. Bonfires. Have you ever seen that? Bonfires of there's in Israel, in Tzfat, in the city of Tzfat, in the city of Meron, but all around the world. Right? In Jewish communities, it's a custom to light bonfires. And the other custom which is prevalent is children, and I've even seen adults doing this as well, children playing with bows and arrows. Right? It sounds like a very strange, almost childish type of thing, especially when children play it, because it's childish. That's what children the children are doing what children do. They're playing with a bow and arrow. But it's when you see rabbis holding a bow and arrow, not that they're going around playing with it, but they hold it. So what's going on? What is the significance of this as well? So this points to really the deeper understanding of this day. Understandably, with the revelation of the Zohar, the great mystical tradition of the Zohar, with the revelation of that, we can aptly say that this was a day when great light shined in the world. The revelation of the deeper mystical tradition of Judaism, that marked a revelation of light, of divine light, of spiritual light. And then also, if you combine this with the fact that I said that this is the beginning of the last third of the time period between Pesach and Shavuos as we approach Mount Sinai with the revelation of the Ten Commandments. So this really is a very bright day. And I was very happy to see that the sun is shining today. It's warm. And is that guaranteed it's going to stay warm? We don't know. It's up and down with the temperatures. But at least today, it's a very, very nice day. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. So there is a certain understanding in the sources that this day is a day of light, it's a day of revelation of light. In addition, though, so the bonfires is symbolic of that. That's the idea of lighting bonfires. Light fire is a revelation like it's alluding to the symbolic of the light and also the revelation of the Zohar. The bow and arrow, right, is also related to this as well. How is it related? Because the Hebrew expression for bow is keshet, or the Hebrew word for bow is a keshet, is a bow, which is the same word as a rainbow, and a rainbow is called a keshet. So we also signify the rainbow on this day. How so? So believe it or not, that the appearance of a rainbow in the sky is not considered a very positive experience. It's more of an ominous occurrence if you see a rainbow in the sky. And the reason for this is because of the story of when after the flood, with Noah and the flood, the world met its destruction, or almost destruction with the flood. But after the flood was over, God said to the world, I'm never going to destroy the world again. And he marked his promise and his assurance the world will not be destroyed again by saying that if ever the world is deserving of destruction, I will never destroy it again, but I will put a rainbow in the sky as a sign. You'll know that on the one hand, there is din, there is judgment, which is hanging over the world at this time, but I promise that the world will not be destroyed. And the rainbow is symbolic of that. And there's a lot of discussion about why the rainbow was chosen. But as it applies to us, so why are we thinking about the rainbow today? Because in the generation of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, this great sage, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in his generation, his merit protected the world from any judgment. And there was never a need for a rainbow to be seen in the sky in the days of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But the Talmud says that after, when he passed away, with his passing away, so then his merit no longer protected the world. And therefore, there's possibility there could be judgment against the world, and if there's judgment against the world, so then there would be a need for a rainbow to be shown, to promise that despite the fact there's judgment over here, that I'm not going to destroy the world, and that's the promise of the rainbow. But then in a certain sense, the rainbow came back. Not that it necessarily came back on the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away, but the need for a rainbow came back into the world on the day he passed away. Right? So that's not really a positive dimension. It happened to be that's what happened on this day. The need for a rainbow came back. But the lesson, for the more spiritual, ethical lesson of the rainbow is the fact that it represents a whole panoply of colors. It represents a whole variety of colors. And particularly when the sky is dark, when the clouds are black and it's bad weather, and all of a sudden there's a rainbow of colors, of such beautiful colors shining in the sky. So that symbolizes the fact that even in the darkness, even when there is darkness, even when there are black clouds looming over us, there is still a potential for light. There's still a potential for color. So all of these different things all point to one common idea. And the one common idea, which is what Lag BaOmer is marked, which is recognized as, it's a day of revelation of light. It's a day of revelation of color. It's a day of revelation of seeing the good in other people, in seeing the good in life circumstances, and seeing the good and the light, which is all around us, and particularly in the Torah as well. And this is why it's not by accident that the death of the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped happening on this day. The Talmud says, as I said before, the reason why they perished in this time period because they didn't have proper covet for each other. They didn't have proper respect for each other. What is respect, and where does respect come from? Respect comes from when a person sees the virtues in another individual. When we relate the flaws and the faults and their mistakes and their foibles, that doesn't engender love. It doesn't engender any kind of respect. Respect, when a person respects another individual, what's happening is you are recognizing, identifying more primarily with the person's virtues and qualities rather than their mistakes and shortcomings. Respect demands a recognition and identification with the person's values, seeing the light in the person. So I'm just going to mute everyone. Sorry. Just muted everyone. So when a person sees the light in another person, that's what engenders respect. We have respect when we see light. So Lag BaOmer in the tradition and all the sources, they all point towards revelation of light. In fact, the word lag BaOmer, even though it means 33, numerical value 33, if you reverse the letters of lag, and it spells the word gal, which is the same word as gilu, which was revelation. Gala's revelation. So inherent in the expression Lag BaOmer is the revelation of light, the revelation of quality, the revelation of goodness in others. And all of these things go together. The man falling down. The man was like a spiritual food. The manna was a spiritual food. It provided physical nutrition, but more primarily is described as a spiritual food as well, connecting to the soul, connecting to the neshama inside of a person. So this is what Lag BaOmer is all about. So if someone asks you what is the message, what's the lesson, what's the moral message, the moral character of Lag BaOmer, it's revelation of light. The revelation of light, seeing light in people, seeing light in the world, seeing light in the darkest of moments, and there's a rainbow in the sky, the seeing light in the darkest of moments, and seeing light in the gift of the Torah that we have, and especially in the mystical tradition, the Zohar which we have. This is the day of light, and that's why the period of mourning is over, and we're now marching towards the final phase of Mount Sinai and the revelation at Sinai and Shavuos. So what does that have to do with the ethical dilemma of the day, right? So because Lag BaOmer is about making bonfires, that's certainly the most visible feature of the day, bonfires. There was a tradition, and this goes back generations. And even though it's not really seen today, I will say that I did see a photograph of what looked like what I'm going to read to you right now, what I'm going to share with you, and that is that what I have in front of me is a page from a book, and it's written a couple of hundred years ago, and the person's writing and testifying about the fact that in Meron is the city where Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is buried, and if you go there today, it's all big to do over there, big celebrations. So Tzfat and Meron are the two big locations where Lag BaOmer is really celebrated. So this person, the author, is writing over here. He says that I testify truthfully that when I was very young, I heard over here from the elder sages of the Sephardic rabbis who are over here, referring to Meron and Tzfat, their fathers saw and they testified and they related to the great Kaddish, the great Rabbi HaKaddish, Rav Chaim ben Attar. He was known as the Or HaChaim. The Or HaChaim is one of the great classic commentators on the Chumash, on the Bible, and he lived about 500 years ago. So the person writing here says people saw him on Lag BaOmer in Tzfat, because Sha'ala LeMeron, when he went towards Meron, which is very close by to Tzfat, and he got to the bottom of the mountain, as he was going up towards the holy place of Meron, where the Shimon Bar Yochai is buried, he got off his donkey, and he was walking up on his hands and feet. And all the while he was crying out, saying to himself, woe to me, I'm so low, I'm so small and so little. How do I have the merit to be able to go up to this very, very holy spot where Shimon Bar Yochai is buried and where Hashem is residing and this whole heavenly hosts are over here? This is such a holy place. How am I worthy to be even going over here? The Kol Neshamas Tzadikim Sham, all of the holy souls have passed away, are hovering over here. And at this time, Samach Simcha Gedoli was filled with tremendous joy. And he himself, Sarach Kama Begadim, he took many expensive garments, expensive clothes, for the honor of the Rashbi, his name was Rashbi, and burnt them in the fire. And took these expensive garments and burnt them in the fire. Right? And that's what he did. And again, this is recorded elsewhere, and it seems to be that people used to have this tradition of taking, expensive garments and burning in the bonfire on Lag BaOmer. So it's not, I've never seen it until a few days ago. I was looking at a photograph of a famous Rabbi lighting a bonfire in Meron, and it looked like from a distance, when I was looking at the picture, it looked like there was a bekisha, like a Hasidic bekish, like a coat inside the fire. So maybe people still do it today. But it begs the question, what's going on over here? Why are they burning these garments? Why are they taking expense? Here it says he took many begadim yikarim, precious garments, lekavod Rashbi, for the honor of the Rashbi. And these Zakenim also, these other elders, related this is what they saw, this is what they heard, and they burnt them in the fire. So this what, when I was planning this class a few weeks ago, I was thinking, I'd like to do it happens to be the first Tuesday. We're on the first Tuesday of the month. It's Lag BaOmer. So I had to figure out a connection to Lag BaOmer, some ethical topic. So right away, wow, like this is a strange practice, a strange custom. But what it really brings out is the question, the ethical dilemma of the day, the legal dilemma of the day, Bal Tashchis. Bal Tashchis is the prohibition to waste things, to destroy things. Wanton waste of people's possessions, wanton waste of food, wanton waste of things which have value. What are the parameters? And what's the right, what's the wrong thing about this? And I mean, seemingly, this is what you're doing. You're taking an expensive garment, throwing them into the fire. That seems to be a pretty wanton waste of an expensive garment, right? Expensive valuables. So we're going to come back to the reason why they did it later on. I'm not going to explain to you right now. I want to just first of all really flesh out this issue of wanton waste. What are the parameters? What's the law? What's the prohibition? What's the permits? What are the parameters in Jewish ethics, Jewish law, vis-a-vis throwing things away? And this is very close to my heart. I don't know if my wife is listening to this, but it's very close to my heart because I grew up in England, and my mother, she lived through the Holocaust, but not in Germany, but she went through the Blitz in England. She was evacuated. She had to travel around England as a little girl. And she lived through rations. She lived through a period where things were rationed, food was rationed, possessions were rationed. So I just grew up as a child, always with the expression, waste not, want not, waste not, want not. And it was like ingrained inside of me not to throw things away. And I still struggle with this today. Like I can't stand seeing things thrown away. Even when we were preparing the food over here, I wanted to just bring what was necessary. I can't stand, it's hard for me to see things just being thrown away. I come to America, and I'm still trying to wean myself off this philosophy, because here in America, this is the land of just seeing the throwaway society, much more compared to England and what I grew up with. But it really is, we all know it's a problem. I'm going to read to you something from it's called the National Resources Defense Council report, the Natural Resources Defense Council. They report that about 40% of all foods in the United States goes uneaten. It's either left to rot or tossed in the garbage. In fact, 7% of all food doesn't even make it out of the farm. And a significant amount doesn't even get picked because it doesn't meet standards for color and shape. One industry estimate claims that an average of $2,300 of food products are discarded each day by individual grocery stores due to impending expiration dates. American families throw out between 14 and 25% of the food and the beverages that they purchase, and restaurant diners leave about 17% of their food uneaten. So it's really, this bothers me. It bothers me on a personal level, but it's really, on a halachic level, on a legal level, Jewish halachic level, it really is a problem. It's an issue. It's an issue. So let's now take a look at the sources. And Paul, let me just see if I can just put this in the chat. So you can, if you're on Zoom, you can. It's in the portal anyway, but I'm putting it into the chat. The handout, I'm going to give it out over here too. Okay. And since we're doing this right now, second CLE code 57. You have to figure out the significance of these numbers. The first one, I'm cheating now. The first one was 33. This one is 57, right? But you have to figure out the meaning of these numbers. But let me hand these out. So this is the right. Anyway, so this is the wanton destruction. Bal tashchis is the expression. So we're going to understand. We're going to explore this prohibition of bal tashchis. This comes from. It comes from Devarim 20:19, it says, when you besiege a city for many days to wage war against it, to capture it. This is Moshe speaking to the Jewish people before entering the land of Israel. He says, don't destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them, for you may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Is the tree of the field a man to go into the siege before you? So this is the source of the prohibition of destruction. It comes from specifically a fruit-bearing tree, which was potentially there when the Jewish people were conquering the land of Israel. That's the source for it. Don't destroy a fruit-bearing tree. So already you begin to see a little bit of a clue as to some of the parameters, because it says specifically a fruit-bearing tree. But let's go through the sources. Number two, this is from the Rambam, Maimonides, in his description of the mitzvahs, number 57 of the negative commandments. In the course of battle, he says, while besieging an enemy city, it's forbidden to cut down fruit-bearing trees in order to cause distress and pain to the city's inhabitants. Included in this mitzvah is the prohibition against any wanton destruction. For example, cutting down a fruit-bearing tree, even not in time of battle, or needlessly burning a garment or breaking a utensil. So here we have our Lag BaOmer dilemma, because burning garments inside the fire, I mean, that seems to be pretty needless. What's the reason for it? But this is another reason to stay till the end to get the answer to that. But in the meantime, right, needlessly burning and destroying your possessions falls under the rubric of this negative commandment of Bal Tashres, don't destroy. Of course, there are exceptions. There are exceptions. The Rambam himself, Maimonides, based upon all the Gemaras, different sources, tells us of the exceptions. If you go to number 3, nevertheless, a fruit tree may be cut down if it causes damage to other trees or to fields belonging to others, or if a high price could be received for its wood. The Torah only prohibited cutting down a tree with a destructive intent, only with its destructive intent. It's permissible to cut down any non-fruit-bearing tree, even if one has no need for it, which is interesting, I guess, because the wood, right? Similarly, one may cut down a fruit-bearing tree that has become old and produces only a slight yield, which does not warrant the effort required to care for it. This prohibition does not apply to trees only. Rather, anyone who breaks utensils, tears garments, destroys buildings, stops up a spring, or ruins food with a destructive intent transgresses the command, do not destroy. However, he's not lashed. Thank God we don't have lashes today. Instead, he receives stripes for rebellion. He receives stripes for rebellious conduct as instructed by the sages. That's a technical point in terms of what the penalties are. But the point is wanton destruction of any property, not just fruit trees, falls under this ban, this prohibition of Bal Tashres. If you skip now to go to number 5 on the sheet, I'm going to skip number 4, come back to that afterwards. Number 5 on the next page. This is from the Gates of Repentance. I didn't do this deliberately, but I give a class right here in this room every Sunday morning at 9:30. So if anyone is interested, it's on Zoom on the same link which we have right now. It's a very, I mean, I'm a big fan of this class because not because I teach it, but because the class, the topic which I teach is called Gates of Repentance, Shari Teshuvah. It's a phenomenal work. It's a phenomenal work on Jewish philosophy and ethics and outlook. It's every Sunday morning at 9:30. I'm mentioning it because this next quote comes from this book, from Gate 3, and it's segment number 82, where he talks about this prohibition, right? This prohibition. I'm going to read it from my translation that I have in front of me, which is a different translation, which expands upon the words drop more, just as it brings a little bit more into it. So I'm going to read it as follows. The Torah says, again, when you besiege the city, not to destroy the tree, etc. So he continues in the book, in the Shari Teshuvah, Gates of Repentance. He says, as long as there is enough, he says, we're commanded this verse not to cut down any tree, even if the purpose is to build a siege structure with its wood in order to lay siege to an enemy city. Again, I'm reading from this book here, which has more. As long as there is enough available wood from the non-fruit-bearing tree. Although the verse forbids destroying fruit trees, our sages understood the prohibition more broadly to include any form of wastefulness. We are also commanded by this verse not to waste money or destroy our possessions needlessly, even a pruta's worth, which is a tiny amount, a few pennies. To illustrate the severity of this prohibition, Our sages stated that if one tears his garments for his deceased relative, tearing kriya, more than the amount required by the law, he transgresses the prohibition of you shall not destroy. In other words, if a person, God forbid, is in a situation where he has to tear kriya for a relative, and he cuts more than he's required to do, that extra tear already falls into the category of baltashchis, of wanton destruction. Now you may say, this is a quick reminder to turn your phones off.
But I had
That's what everyone says. So what was I saying? Tearing kriya. So God forbid, if a person's in that situation where they have to tear kriya. So a person you may say, well, if you're tearing kriya, God forbid, you can't repair the garment after you tear kriya. That's a rule. Once a garment is torn because of mourning, you can't repair it after and wear it again afterwards. You're not allowed to do that. So the jacket, the shirt's going to get thrown away anyway. So who cares if I tear it even more than is required by the technical letter of the law? But it's going to get thrown away anyway. The answer is because the extra now you're tearing and destroying this shirt not in the name of the mitzvah. You're now doing it wantonly. And that intrinsic act of just wanton, of that extra tear, that extra cutting, where there's no value, there's no purpose to do that, that falls into this category of baltashchis, of wanton destruction. Even though the act of tearing one's clothing for deceased relative is a mitzvah, and even though he ripped that extra amount out of intense grief, nevertheless, since he tore his clothes more than he was required to do so, he's guilty of unnecessary destruction of property. So therefore, certainly one who breaks utensils in his rage is worthy of punishment. He goes through an example of people who break things in anger. That's really bad. Obviously, there's no justification for that. Since he has done two wrongs, he's destroyed something of value, and he's empowered his Yetzer Hara, his anger, to overpower him. And he goes on talking about this terrible behavior of breaking things in anger, and it just leads down to much worse transgressions and sins and things which are wrong to do. But what we see from these sources so far is there are exceptions. There are situations where you're allowed tearing kriya, as long as you tear kriya for the sake of the amount which is necessary for the sake of the mitzvah, or if a person wants the wood for the tree. So these situations, what other example is there? Can anyone think of another example? This is an event which is taking place. Actually, there's going to be next week. There's going to be a public demonstration of a destruction of a valuable item for a constructive purpose. There's going to be a demonstration next. Anyone know what's going on? There's next week. There's a special event happening, and there's going to be a public display of a destruction and a breaking of actually two items of value in front of everybody, and people can go there and watch it. They can see it, and the people are going to be taking an expensive item and smashing it and breaking it. Not the tearing of, not the burning of the clothes and the bonfire of Lag BaOmer. That's not next week. There'll be a public demonstration of a destruction of an object of value. In fact, two objects of value. Anyone knows? Anyone think of it? It's a week from Thursday night. There's going to be a public demonstration of a destruction of two items of value in full view of everybody. People are invited. People can come and watch it. There are even special recitations set over it as well. Everyone's looking at their calendars. I say, what's happening next Thursday night?
Here or in Israel?
Yeah, in the States specifically. If you look at your calendar, take a look at next Thursday evening. There is the Coleman wedding taking place. So our daughter's getting married. So there's going to be a public, display of taking a plate and smashing it and breaking it at the Bedek and Tanayim ceremony, and then followed by that at the chuppah, they're going to take a class and the groom is going to jump on top of it and break it in front of everybody, right? And there's all these blessings and all these recitations set around it. So is that baltashchis? Is that wanted destruction of something? Of course not, right? Because this all falls into the category of things which are being done for the sake of a mitzvah. Whatever the mitzvahs are, with the breaking of the glass, that's a zeich l'churban. It's to commemorate the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple, and it's time of mourning, is like tearing kriya. But through this, I'm actually thinking to myself, I wonder, this has occurred to me now, like, I wonder if there's in the same way as we just read in this source number 5, that if a person, tears too much of the garment for mourning, it's already crossing the line and falling into the category of Bal Tashchis, right? The prohibition. So maybe if a person, gets too excited, if the chassan, the groom gets too excited and really jumps on it, maybe that's already too much. Or maybe there's some, maybe you shouldn't take too big of a glass. I don't know. I've never seen anyone talk about that. But anyway, but it brings out the illustration. You're treading upon a very, very fine line, because in number 5, Shari Teshuvah, he's saying that you're allowed to tear the garment for the sake of the mitzvah. Once you go over the line, you now fall into the category of Bal Tashchis. It's a very fine line. So, but the principle which we see from this is constructive. If there's a constructive purpose in the destruction, so then it's not considered a destruction. It's not considered a wanton destruction of property. So, what other exceptions are there? Other examples, which I think in the handout there's an article there from the Star K. It's a very good kashrus organization, and they provide articles and periodicals about different practical halachas. So I took some of this from there, so you can look through it afterwards as well. But the summary of this is, for example, things which are okay to do. You're allowed to, for example, the rabbis say you can destroy fruit trees, for example, if it's old and no longer producing fruit, if it's providing valuable wood, if it's causing damage, if the destruction of the tree. This is going back to the original commandment of destroying a fruit tree. If it's to allow expansion of roads and building and areas and cramped areas, although some do say that when a person it's interesting, when some people say that when one is engaged in any type of destructive act, even though technically you're allowed to do it, better to ask someone else, better to ask somebody. He says, the person says, Yaakov Emden says, it's better maybe to transfer the ownership to somebody who's not Jewish before doing so. Although I don't understand 100%, because why would someone who's not Jewish also be under this ban as well? So I don't know. But another issue, which is all the time, and I'm going to have this today also, is saving food at the end of a meal. What are the parameters of throwing food away? I read to you the article before about the statistics of how much food is thrown away. What is the proper conduct? What's the proper approach to throwing food away at the end? So the rule of thumb, generally speaking, is if there's edible food left over, a certain minimum size of a kazayas, they describe it a kazayas, as like an olive size amount of food, which is like more like an egg size volume of food, which can still be used and still be utilized, still be eaten, you shouldn't throw it away. Wrap it up and put it inside the refrigerator. Common sense, but yet people don't really, think about it so much, and especially after weddings. Now, here's an interesting question, because if you are going to go, if it's just you're serving food by yourself and you're at home, so that's not such a big deal to save the food, put it into the refrigerator. When you have big simchas, big bar mitzvahs and weddings, etc., it's a very big ordeal to save the food. If it's easy to save, and many places do, what they do is they give it to organizations in Lakewood. They send to the yeshivas and they send to schools afterwards, so that's fine. But let's say the ordeal and the tircha, the ordeal and the effort necessary to be able to save the produce or the food, whatever it is, afterwards, is going to take so much time. Are you supposed to do that? Because you could make an argument, well, there's Bal Tashchis on my possessions. Bal Tashchis is the expression, don't waste, don't wantonly destroy. But there's also Bal Tashchis on my time. I'm going to go ahead and spend the next 20 minutes salvaging this food and putting it away and packaging it all up. Maybe I should be doing something better with my time. Maybe I should be studying. Maybe I should be praying. Maybe I should be doing a chesed with other people. I'm saving this food at the expense of helping somebody else. These are the questions you have. These are gray areas. These are the gray areas in the law in terms of what to do. An example is given by one of the great authorities, the Chaya Adam. He says that a person who wants to change his tzitzis on his talis, on the tzitzis, the strands which are worn out and they're dirty, and he wants to change them. So how do you change them? You take them off, you put new ones on, especially you want to keep the talis. obviously it's easier just to buy a new talus, but if you want to actually keep the talus itself, the garment, so in order to get the tzitzis off, you got to unravel them. It takes time to unravel them. A quicker way to do it would be just take a pair of scissors and cut them off and put new tzitzis on. So again, see that, one would not necessarily think of it. That would be considered baltashlis, taking those tzitzis and just destroying them. But he says the time it takes to unravel them, baltashlis on your time is more valuable than baltashlis on the actual strands themselves. But it brings out the point. It brings out this idea that if there's a greater good at hand, that there's a greater value which is at hand, so then you go with that greater value. But again, all these different examples where there is a purpose, there is a value, there's a purpose in the destruction, then you're allowed to do it. There's an interesting case that the Mishnah speaks about. The Mishnah says that in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, there was a manager of Harabayas, there was a manager over Temple Mount. His job was he was the house manager of Temple Mount, and they used to have honor guards around the Beis Hamikdash, the Levian, the Levites. Their job was to be honor guards around the Beis Hamikdash, and they just would walk around. They would stand there to bring honor to the Beis Hamikdash, the temple. So the house manager, his job was to walk around to make sure that they weren't falling asleep, because they had to be there 24. I mean, you didn't have 24-hour shift, but if you were on the end of your 12-hour shift, you're dozy, you're tired, you may be falling asleep. The house manager would walk around with a stick and prod the Levi, wake up. But the Mishnah says he would even go as far as, if he needed to singe his cloak, to singe the garment of the honor guard. So Baltashla, how can you go and destroy a garment? Again, it's all examples of constructive purposes. If there's a constructive purpose, there's a story told in the Gemara about famous sage Mar, the son of Ravina, at his son's wedding. I'm in the wedding spirit over here. At his son's wedding, he broke an expensive glass to tone down the frivolity that he was seeing. It was getting out of hand. There was a bit too much, maybe drinking, too much frivolity at the wedding, and he needed to kind of make the atmosphere a drop more serious. It's a day of simcha, but a drop more serious. He took an expensive glass, he threw it down on the ground, and he got everyone startled, and their attention got turned to it. But again, it's for a constructive purpose. So the principle is destroying something for a constructive purpose is okay, is not considered. I personally just find it interesting that it's such a fine line. That's what I find intriguing about this, because you have an out and out bona fide, biblical commandment of don't destroy, right? I mean, there are different opinions about if the biblical prohibition applies to non-fruit trees, but at least it's a very, very serious commandment, at the very least a rabbinic commandment not to destroy. And yet the line between what's destruction, what's not destruction, and who's to decide when is considered constructive purpose, when it's not, it's a very fine line. It's a delicate balance, because and if a person is really sensitive to adhering to the law and wants to not do anything wrong and not violate the halacha and the mitzvah, so then you got to be very careful. One has to really be very circumspect and very, very cautious about how much is this really considered constructive purpose, and we should really lean towards the side of trying to save. I know somebody who he will save every last morsel of bread and pick up everything. Right, David? Right. David is I knew you'd be here today for this, right? And finding, tell us about you. How many pennies have you found laying on the ground?
Oh, yes.
He's
Yeah.
He has a magnetic eye for finding little small items on the ground which have value, right? So this is this is the idea. So we go back though. So burning the garment of Lag BaOmer, burning the garments in the bonfire. Does that sound like a constructive purpose? Sounds like a very nice thing, it's a cute thing to kind of throw it in, but it's not a cute thing, but it's a strange thing. What's behind that? What's the significance of it? So again, if we don't really have this, we don't have the practice. We don't have the practice today. One of the current day poskim, Rav Asher Weiss, who lives in Eretz Yisrael, so he says, being that it's not the custom today to do this, we shouldn't do it. But back in the day, when this was the custom, it was not considered baltashlis. What's the reason why? So it really goes back to the story of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai himself. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, I said, is the author of the Zohar. He's the one who brought all this light into the world on this day of Lag BaOmer. And he was such a holy individual, very, very holy individual. In fact, There's one of the song which is sung in memory of Shim Bar Yochai. Bar Yochai, and I can't sing it properly. Bar Yochai goes Bar Yochai. That's how it begins, right? So in that song, it said, one of the lines in the song, it says, Nase Adam Ne'ema Ba'avura, that the expression, let us make man, when God said, let us make man in the Torah, in the beginning of Bereshit, let us make man, was said for him. So he's really elevated to the point of being like the expression, let us make, he epitomizes, he represents the creation of man. He reached such a level of holiness, he really epitomized the creation of man. But aside from authoring the Zohar, he also lived a life of incredible holiness before at one point in his life. So I'm going to read through the Gemara. The Gemara tells a story, recounts a story about him and his son, and really the origin of how he began writing the Zohar and when he produced the Zohar. So I'm going to read through the passage of Gemara. It's not in your handout. It says the Gemara relates a story with regard to these three sages, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they were sitting, and Yehuda, the son of converts, another individual, was sitting beside them. Rabbi Yehuda opened up the discussion and said, how pleasant are the actions of this nation, the Romans, as they established marketplaces, established bridges, and established bathhouses. And he was extolling the virtues of the Romans, Rabbi Yehuda was. Rabbi Yossi was silent, didn't say anything. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai responded and said, nah, everything they established only for their own personal purposes. They established marketplaces to place prostitutes inside of them. They established bathhouses to pamper themselves, and bridges to collect taxes from all who pass over there. Yehuda, son of converts, who was sitting there with them, went and related their statements to his household. And those statements would then continue to spread until they were heard by the authorities. They ruled and said, Yehuda, who elevated the Roman regime, shall be elevated and appointed as head of the sages, the head of the speakers in every place. Yossi, who remained silent, shall be exiled from his home in Judea as punishment and sent to the city of Tzipori in the Galilee. And Shimon Bar Yochai, who denounced the government, shall be killed. And there was a decree put out against him. Shimon Bar Yochai and his son, Rabbi Elazar, went and hid in the study hall. Every day, Rav Shimon's wife would bring them bread and a jug of water, and they would eat. When the decree intensified, Rav Shimon said to his son, women may be impressionable, and therefore there's room for concern lest the authorities torture her and she will reveal our whereabouts. They went and they hid in a cave. A miracle occurred, and a carob tree was created for them as well as a spring of water. They would remove their clothes. Clue, and sit covered in sand up to their necks. They would study Torah all day long in that manner. At the time of prayer, they would dress, cover themselves and pray, and they would again remove their clothes afterwards. They would not become tattered. They sat in the cave for 12 years. That's how long they were in the cave for 12 years, surviving on water and carobs and not have any exchange of clothing. That's why they took the clothing off constantly throughout that period over there. And they would just bury themselves in the sand as much as possible and only use their clothing for when they had to pray. Elijah the prophet came and stood at the entrance to the cave and said, who will inform Bar Yochai that the emperor died and his decree has now been abrogated? So basically it was a signal they could come out. They emerged from the cave and saw people who were plowing and sowing. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, these people are abandoning eternal life of spirituality, of Torah study, and they're engaging in temporal life, working for their own sustenance. The Gemara relates that every place that Reb Shimon and his son, Rabbi Elazar, directed their eyes was immediately burned up by the spiritual power which came out of their eyes. A divine voice emerged and said to them, did you emerge from the cave in order to destroy my world? Go back to the cave. And they went back into the cave for another 12 months. 12 years and 12 months, 13 years altogether. They said the judgment of the wicked in Gehenna lasts for 12 months. Surely their sin was atoned for at that time. And then a divine voice came out and said to them, emerge from your cave. And they came out. Everywhere the Rabbi Elazar would strike, Rabbi Shimon would heal. Rabbi Shimon said to Rabbi Elazar, my son, you and I suffice for the entire world, as the two of us are engaged in the proper study of the Torah. This was the greatness, this is the beyond imagination stature and holiness of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son. But what they say is this, is that he never wore, they didn't wear clothing for those 13 years. So therefore, the first understanding of this tradition of casting a garment into the fire was to remember Shem Bar Yochai, that they couldn't wear clothing for those 13 years inside the cave. But a deeper understanding of it, and I forget where I heard this from, but a deeper understanding of this is that again it says, what I said before, that in the song of Bar Yochai, it says that the expression "Let us make man" was said for, so to speak, for Shem Bar Yochai because of his greatness. Let us make man. Man was made in Gan Eden, right? Man was made in Gan Eden. Wasn't made after Gan Eden. It was made inside Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. What happened in the Garden of Eden? And what caused them to leave the Garden of Eden? They ate from the tree of knowledge. What was one of the differences between the state of man before eating from the tree of knowledge and after eating from the tree of knowledge? One of the significant differences between before and afterwards, was clothing. Clothing only came into the world after they ate from the tree of knowledge. Right? The requirement to be covered, to cover your nakedness because of the shame, was only after they lowered themselves spiritually to become shameful. In fact, the word garment in Hebrew, beged, is also the word for begida, which is shame shame and what I'm thinking of in English. Guilt, yeah, begida. There's a similar kind of word. So they began to wear garments because of the shame and because of the descent, their spiritual descent. If Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was such a holy individual, so this is perhaps one of the understandings, because it's almost like it's symbolic. It's a very beautiful idea when you think about it. Throwing a garment into the fire, it's really symbolic of an aspiration to go back to the spiritual pristine state of before the original sin of eating the tree of knowledge. We want to dissolve all of the different characteristics of this dark world that we live in. All of this dark world where God's light is hidden from us. We want to dissolve that. We want to push away those elements to kind of go back and aspire back to the state before eating from the tree of knowledge. And one of the ways to dissolve those characteristics is by taking the garment. The garment is a symbol of the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge. So we throw it into the fire in order to aspire to go back to that state before the sin. So which is a beautiful, so therefore it turns into a constructive purpose. It's an example of destruction for a constructive purpose. But the core of this whole discussion, is, and this is really very interesting, because I only backed up into the subject just really the way I did, as I explained before. It's really paradoxical, it's very beautiful, because the whole message of Lag BaOmer, is revealing light, seeing the light in people, seeing the goodness in people, respecting people, seeing the goodness in people, respecting people, seeing the light in the world, seeing the light behind the darkness, seeing the light in the Torah, and seeing the light inside your possessions. Seeing the light in the small possessions and the small items. Don't throw them away. Don't wantonly throw them away. So here we are, we're talking about, from a custom of throwing a garment into the fire, which springboards into the discussion, are you allowed to throw things away? But the very message of throwing things away, and the reason why we shouldn't throw things away, is because we have to see the light in things, we have to see the value in every single possession that we have, the smallest things as well. So I want to end off with, it's in your in the handouts, number 4, but again, I'm going to read it from my other edition because it's a better translation. So at least you have it there. So I'm going to read to you what he writes, the same famous Sefer Chinuch, where he explains to us the reason, the shorish, the underlying idea, message behind this commandment. So I'm reading it in my words from this book. The underlying purpose of this mitzvah of not to wantonly destroy something is well known. It's in order to train ourselves to love and appreciate that which is good and productive, and to cleave to it. For through this, goodness will adhere to us, and we will be distanced from all things evil and all things destructive. This is the way of the pious ones and the men of good deeds. They love peace. They rejoice in the good fortune of all the people that God created, and seek to bring them closer to Torah observance and good ethics and morality. And they will not needlessly destroy anything of God's world, not even something as tiny as a mustard seed. They are pained by any loss or destruction they see. And if they can rescue something from destruction, they will act with all their might to rescue anything, no matter how insignificant, from being needlessly destroyed. But the wicked ones, who are the brothers, quote unquote, brothers of demons, are not so. They rejoice in the destruction of society, and they thus corrupt themselves as well. How so? Because as our sages teach, with the measure that one measures out to others, to other people, the heavenly court measure for him in return. Meaning to say, he's eternally attached to that measure. Thus, since the wicked revel in the destruction and degradation of God's world, they themselves are met with destructive forces. This is in accordance with that which is written in Proverbs. One who rejoices in another's fortune will not be exonerated. As for the one who desires good and rejoices in it, his soul will eternally reside with good. And this is well known and is common knowledge. So the underlying idea is to see the good in people, to see the good in life, to see the good in the Torah, of course, and to see the good in all of our possessions, and to preserve them, protect them, and not destroy them. And this is the prohibition of Bal Tashchis, not to wantonly destroy, bring things to waste, unless there's a constructive purpose behind it. So with that, we end with the last CLE code on 1 o'clock, 1:01 precisely. That was good timing. 86. 86 is the code. Oh, 1 second. I know what I've got to do. I've got to turn the webinar off. Give me a second.
86 means to get rid of something.
Well, one second. Don't. Those are on Zoom. Just give me a second. I've got to allow you to be able to enter the codes. Give me a second. Give me a second. Okay. Your form is now available to do it. You can now fill out the form. And also, if there's any question, I'm going to unmute you all. If anyone has any questions, they can ask questions if they want. Your microphones are turned on.
Where is it? Where is the form?
Oh, it's in the same place you're watching the video, but I'll put it into the chat as well. It's wherever you are. It's the where you got into the class. I'll put it in. Give me a second. Coming on now. 1 second. Okay, it's in the chat.
Respectfully, I don't see it. Oh, here, wait. I see it.
Yeah, okay.
Quick question.
I see the
86.
no.
What?
The last code was 86.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I see the thing. I don't. Oh, code. I see it now. I'm sorry. I got it.
Okay. All right. Don't waste those codes themselves. They're very precious.
Indeed.
They're worth CLE credit.
Do we get forms to fill?
No, I'll just do it for you because I forgot to bring them.
Okay, I have to pay you too for that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. I mean,
You want a check or a card now?
let's think.
You're very brave to use the number 86. Look what happened to James Comey.
Okay, so you're all set to go. So you can all put your codes in, and the evaluations as well.
8647.
And it was 8047. 8647.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's part of the
Validity is astonishing.
What's that? What? Which was what?
The indictment of James Cohn.
Oh, and
I mean, I used to
Okay.
work in restaurants. I mean, it's obviously it means to throw away food.
Yeah. Well, it means get rid of anything. It's like omit, leave off, get rid of, or we're out of.
It's that. I'm talking about
Yeah.
my restaurant work.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
86 that. That's what it really means.
Right. Yeah, but even that could
Most
mean we're
common.
out of it or
when I don't.
Take it off the menu.
Yeah. Okay. Mhm.
I used to be disgusted, now I'm just amused.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm going.
Yeah, it's interesting, and a lot of the stuff about the destruction, it also seems to be about. It's so.
Oh, no, okay.
Hmm.